Midnight Zephyr presents this story. Your feedback helps shape the next horror. What do you want to hear next? And subscribe so you don't miss the next night of nightmares. 3 years ago, on the night of the Harvest Moon Festival in the sleepy coastal town of Blackwater Bay, 31-year-old marine biologist Mara Ellison is alone in her cliffside cottage while her fiancé is away on a research dive. Expecting a quiet evening handing out glow sticks to festival stragglers, Mara instead hears deliberate taps on her storm shutters. Not the wind, not kids. A masked figure in a tattered fisherman's slicker circles her home, testing every latch with surgical calm. When the power dies and her phone signal vanishes, Mara discovers the intruder has disabled her boat and scattered bait knives across the dock. As sirens finally scream up the winding road, the man vanishes into the fog, leaving behind a chilling trophy, a locket engraved with the name of a local girl who vanished last festival. Police are 5 minutes too late to catch him, but just in time to save Mara, or so she thinks. The salt-stung air of Blackwater Bay always smelled like secrets after dusk. On the night of the Harvest Moon Festival, those secrets thickened into something almost chewable. Mara Ellison stood on the narrow porch of her cedar-shingled cottage, the last glow stick in her bucket flickering between her fingers like a dying firefly. Below, the tide gnawed at the rocks with wet, patient teeth. Somewhere down the cliff path, children's laughter rose and fell with the accordion music drifting from the village square. Up here, the only music was wind hissing through the seagrass and the occasional slap of a loose shutter. Mara was 31, sun-bleached and solitary by habit. She studied tide pool ecosystems for the State University, which meant she spent her days knee-deep in brine and her nights cataloging data under a green banker's lamp. Her fiancé Jonah was 300 miles south on a research vessel chasing bioluminescent squid. He'd promised to be back before the festival, but the ocean kept its own calendar. So Mara had volunteered to man the cottage porch, handing out glow sticks to sugar-drunk kids in pirate hats and mermaid tails. By 10:30, the bucket was empty and the path silent. She killed the porch light, locked the door, and let the dark fold around her like a familiar coat. Inside, the cottage smelled of cedar and the lemon candle Jonah hated. Mara kicked off her boots, padded to the kitchen, and poured the dregs of a Pinot into a jelly jar. The festival fireworks had ended an hour ago. Their sulfur ghosts still clung to the windows. She was halfway through season 2 of some forgettable Nordic noir when the first tap came soft, deliberate, against the storm shutter on the east wall. Not wind. Wind didn't pause. Listen, then tap again. Mara muted the television. The room shrank to the size of a heartbeat. She waited 10 seconds. 20, nothing. She laughed at herself, too many late-night creature features, and reached for the remote. Then the second set of taps arrived, slower. From the west shutter this time, a pattern, a message. She crept to the window, parted the slats with 2 fingers. Moonlight silvered the side yard, the clothesline sagging under Jonah's forgotten wetsuit, the wheelbarrow appended like a dead beetle. The gravel path had switched back down to the dock, empty, but the tapping resumed behind her now from the back door that opened onto the widow's walk. 3 measured knocks, then the metallic complaint of the latch being tested. Mara's phone showed 1 trembling bar of service. She thumbed 911, pressed the speaker to her ear, and crouched behind the kitchen island. The operator's voice was calm syrup. "Blackwater Bay Sheriff. What's your emergency?" "Someone's trying my doors." Mara whispered, "I'm alone. Cliffside Cottage, end of Saltmarsh Lane." "Stay on the line, ma'am. Units are en route. Can you secure yourself upstairs?" The stairs creaked like an old confession. Mara was halfway up when the power died. The cottage plunged into a darkness so complete it felt wet. Her phone screen became a useless coin of light. From below came the unmistakable pop of a window screen surrendering its nails. Then glassed-in surgical snapped along its frame. Not a smash, a slice. Mara's bare feet found the bathroom door. She eased it shut, thumbed the flimsy lock, and slid down the cabinets until her spine met cool tile. The operator's voice crackled. "Mara, talk to me." "He's inside," she breathed. "Basement window." I heard the screen, then glass. "Officers are 4 minutes out. Lights and sirens. Stay low. Stay quiet." 4 minutes, 240 seconds. Mara counted them against the thud of her pulse. She pictured the basement, Jonah's surfboards leaning like pale ghosts, the chest freezer that hummed like a dying whale, the narrow bilco door that opened onto the beach path. If the intruder knew the cottage's bones and the deliberate taps suggested he could climb the interior stairs, cross the hallway, and be outside the bathroom before the first cruiser crested the hill. A new sound drifted up through the floorboards. The soft scrape of something being dragged across concrete, not footsteps, something heavier, a duffel, a body. Mara's imagination supplied both. She pressed her forehead to her knees and tasted copper. Then headlights distant, tentative, swept across the bathroom window. They strengthened, multiplied. Red and blue strobes painted the tile in carnival colors. Tires crunched gravel. Doors slammed. A bullhorn voice shattered the night. "Sheriff's Department, come out with your hands up." Silence answered. Then a single, deliberate footstep on the stairs. 1, 2. The third never came. Instead, the front door exploded inward under a deputy's boot. Mara heard shouting, the metallic cough of tasers, the wet thud of a body hitting floorboards. She stayed curled until knuckles rapped on the bathroom door, gentle, almost apologetic. "Ma'am, Deputy Hargrove, it's clear." Mara opened the door on legs that felt borrowed. The cottage looked smaller under the glare of flashlights. Deputy Hargrove was young, freckled. Trying not to stare at the knife Mara only now realized she clutched. She set it on the sink like it might bite someone. Downstairs, the intruder knelt in the living room, wrists zip-tied a deputy's knee between his shoulder blades. He wore a yellow fisherman's, slicker crusted with salt and something darker. A drugstore sea monster mask grew by tentacles. Cracked lens lay discarded beside him like a shed skin. His eyes were the pale gray of winter surf, and they fixed on Mara with a calm that felt obscene. In the corner, an evidence tech photographed a canvas ditch bag. From its mouth spilled horrors, a coil of paracord, a roll of duct tape, a filleting knife still flecked with fish scales or worse, and nestled on top, glinting like a cruel star, a silver locket on a broken chain. Deputy Hargrove lifted it with gloved fingers. The engraving was tiny, deliberate. *LIVVY14*. Mara's stomach lurched. Livy Shoreham, the high school sophomore who'd vanished during last year's festival. The case was still pinned to the corkboard at the Harbor Cafe, her yearbook smile fading under months of salt air. The intruder said nothing. He didn't need to. The locket spoke for him. Hargrove bagged it, then turned to Mara. "We almost didn't make it." Fog rolled in thick on the coast road. 5 more minutes and he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Paramedics wrapped Mara in a blanket that smelled of mothballs and coffee. She watched them load the man into a cruiser. He twisted once to look back at the cottage at her and smiled with teeth too white for the blood on his lip. The cruiser's taillights disappeared down Saltmarsh Lane, swallowed by fog that now seemed to breathe. Later, after statements and fingerprints, and the peculiar humiliation of being a victim, Mara stood on the Widow's Walk. Dawn bled across the water, turning the bay the color of a healing bruise. Deputy Hargrove approached, boots crunching on shattered glass someone had missed. "We ran his prints," he said. "Real names: Caleb Drift, paroled 6 months ago after doing 12 for a home invasion in Astoria. 3 priors, all festival nights, all coastal towns. Always the same mo cuts power, disables boats, takes his time." Hargrove hesitated. Livy's locket wasn't the only thing in the bag. There was a list, names, addresses. Yours was third. Mara's blanket slipped from her shoulders. "Third. First 2 are cold cases. Girls who vanished and were never found." He met her eyes. "We think tonight was his coming out party after prison. A harvest," he called it in his journal. Found that in his truck, the word *harvest* lodged in Mara's throat like a fishbone. Hargrove left her with a business card and a promise of patrols. When his cruiser finally rolled away, the cottage felt too large, its corners suddenly negotiable. Mara locked the doors anyway, then dragged Jonah's old sea chest across the floorboards to block the basement stairwell. She brewed coffee she didn't drink and watched the sun climb until it burned the fog to rags. At 9:17 a.m. her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost let it ring out. Then she answered. Mara Ellison. The voice was male, low, amused. Not Caleb Younger, coastal accent softened by something colder. "You should check your dog." The line went dead. Mara's bare feet carried her outside before her mind caught up. The tide had retreated, exposing the barnacled ribs of the shoreline. Her skiff bobbed innocently at its mooring, except the painter line was freshly cut, ends frayed like snapped nerves, and there, nailed to the piling with Jonah's own dive knife, was a new glow stick still sealed, still glowing. Inside the plastic tube, something floated that wasn't chemicals. A tooth, small, human, with a silver filling that caught the morning light like a wing. Mara stared at it until the gulls overhead sounded like laughter. Somewhere in the village, the festival cleanup crews were sweeping confetti into gutters. Somewhere out past the breakers, Jonah's research vessel cut through water that suddenly felt too wide. She didn't scream. She didn't call Hargrove. She simply unmoored the skiff, climbed in, and rowed until her shoulders burned and the cottage shrank to a postage stamp on the cliff. Only then did she look back. The glow stick was still nailed to the piling, pulsing like a heartbeat. And in the cottage window's second floor, a silhouette stood where no one should be. To be continued.